first of all, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Quinn, for coming on the show. I know your time is very valuable. You're a very busy man. You've been, on a lot of news feeds and different things like that. So I want to thank you for your time first and foremost.
Well, listen, it's an honor to be here, and hope we can put out some good information to make the university a healthier place.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I did want to ask you to come on is because now, with especially being living in the pandemic, health has been on the top of everybody's mind, and everyone kind of has their own idea of what health is. Now, before we get started, can you kind of talk about like what you do?
Yes, of course. I am a family physician. I grew up in Mississippi and went to college, undergrad, attended here in Mississippi. Then I went to Nashville, Tennessee, where I did my medical school. After medical school, I did my residency in Los Angeles, and I returned to Mississippi to practice family medicine. Believe it or not, it'll be 19 years this spring. So I've had the opportunity to help a lot of my fellow Mississippians as far as achieving a higher level of health. One of my main motivations to come back was there was a great need because Mississippi has one of the highest disparities of medical providers in the country as far as a state. And just the fact that I was from Mississippi, I felt that I could be a really good advocate to my fellow Mississippians, being that I'm one of their homeboys returning home. So it's been a really good 2 decades, believe it or not. I still have hair, can't tell, but I still have it. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So we didn't know this prior to you getting on my show here, but I'm actually in Nashville, Tennessee. So what school did you finish here?
Meharry Medical College.
Okay, yeah, very, very popular and well deserved accolades, from that school as well. So you come back to Mississippi, and if I remember what you just said correctly, you said it has one of the highest obesity rates. Is that correct?
Well, what I said was that it had one of the highest disparities as far as healthcare
Hmm.
providers, meaning that the overall population has a lower percentage of medical providers to include doctors, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants, meaning that there's a great need for medical providers.
Hmm.
But it is true that we also have a very high prevalence of individuals that live in Mississippi living with obesity. So
Hmm.
that's also a contributing factor as far as the need for medical providers, because living with obesity um, has the high potential and in most cases the consequence of having diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and a lot of these conditions are uncontrolled, resulting in people losing their lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's tough to hear. In the United States in general, obesity is high, but also like I feel like around the world things are the more globalized, the eating becomes, the more obesity keeps rising. I might be wrong about that, but it does seem like over the years, it's kind of like increased.
No, you are 100% correct. Ironically, what I'm doing right now is I'm currently engaged in a process. When I was in Los Angeles, I used to do a clinic on the side where I had my medical license, but I was not yet finished with my residency.
Mm.
But by having a medical license in residency, is basically after you finish medical school, you get accepted to a residency program.
Mm.
My residency program was family medicine, which is pretty much just general doctor, just a little bit of everything. I can do a pap smear, I can give a kid a shot, treat hypertension, or somebody hurts their back. You're almost like a McDonald's restaurant, just jack of trade of everything. But the bottom line is, I used to work with a friend that had a clinic, and on certain nights of the week, I would go there and rent her clinic out, and I would see patients and provide weight loss medications. And it was a very good experience. We were able to help a lot of people, and I had this interest upon returning to Mississippi to do weight loss medicine, but starting a new practice, I sort of got caught up with the practice and my desire to help people as far as specifically being a weight loss doctor, prescribing medications just kind of got pushed to the side. But my interest has been renewed over the last couple of years. And since then, I've made contact with the Mississippi State Medical Board. And if you want to do weight loss medication, you have to do 100 hours of training in weight loss medicine and register with the board. And then you can do weight loss medicine. And that's what I'm currently engaged in. Mm-hmm. And ironically, one of the lectures I watched just yesterday talked about the prevalence of obesity in the United States over the past 15 years has increased every single year. And I'm going to tell you, the pandemic really did not help because so many people were at home. They were having anxiety. They were worried. The gyms were closed. And a lot of people turn to what is called comfort food. You know, you eat your chips, you feel better, releases those endorphins in your brain to say, it's going to be okay. Just have one more chip or maybe some ice cream or whatever. But the bottom line is the pandemic resulted in a lot of people even gaining even more weight, becoming more obese. And overall, our whole society has become more overweight.
So, you know, it's a layered problem, right? It's kind of, there's multiple contributing factors. It does, you know, appear to come down really now the world that we live in, individual choice. I'm not sure, like, what do you think? Are there any steps that can be taken to mitigate that in a broad stroke type of way? Obviously, you know, individuals can make their own decisions on what they eat and things like that, but more from like I said, broad stroke perspective.
I know exactly what you're saying, and I'm going to share something with you, and I'm going to be vulnerable. Before I started this journey, learning all this information, I have to complete 100 CMEs. That's continued medical education. This represents pretty much hours.
Wow.
And so far, I'm at about 64. I've watched so many lectures by experts in the field on weight loss. These are doctors from very reputable institutions such as Columbia, Harvard, and they're doing their lectures and they're educating the student who would be myself. And what I learned is it's not so much just raw choice. Like, say, for instance, I'll hold up two hands and I say, pick one. And you say, I'll take that one, the one with the ring on it. Well, you chose that hand. You made a choice, but there was really nothing influencing your choice. You just made a choice, right? So you might think if an individual is in their home and they have a cabinet, and in that cabinet, they have a big bag of potato chips, but in their other side of the cabinet, they have a bag of apples. So why don't they just choose the apples, right? It's simple. If you choose the apples, it's more healthy. It's a better choice. You'll be in better physical shape. Your heart, everything will thank you for it. But there's more to it. And basically, individuals that attempt to lose weight, okay, it's a much more complicated journey than that I knew before I started this educational journey. Well, the bottom line is your body auto-regulates, and it goes all the way back to your primitive days. We're talking about the caveman, all right? Remember that guy? He's in a cave. He's got a big old stick, and he's ready. He's going to go out and hit a dinosaur in the head and get food and bring it back to the cave and make a fire and cook dinner, right? Well, the way the evolutionary process evolved and what we have now are just spinoffs from the caveman, but we still have those survival mechanisms that are part of our subconscious nervous and our endocrine system. Okay. So let's say an individual starts to lose weight, but let's go back to the caveman. He's losing weight. Now, typically, if a caveman is losing weight, he's doing a famine, meaning that there's not enough food. Okay. There's not enough food to eat. He goes out every day. He tries to go ahead and kill something, but he comes home with nothing. He's starting to lose weight. What happens without him even knowing about it? That autonomic nervous system, those hormones, he releases hormones such as ghrelin and other hormones that go to his brain, mainly the hypothalamus. And what happens is he gets even more hungry and he gets aggressive. And instead of walking out, he runs out and he finds the prey and he kills it and he brings it back because these hormones are driving him to not be lazy about it. I mean, he's gonna go and get that prey. Okay, he'll go bite another caveman probably. Now, what happens is when we lose weight, okay, let's say for instance, we go to the cupboard, we see the potato chips, we see the apple. Let's get the apple because Dr. Quinn said be healthy. We eat the apple. We start losing weight, right? And we're doing great. We've lost 15 pounds. If you'll notice, most people that lose weight, they lose weight and then they gain weight. Then they lose weight. It's called yo-yoing. I know you're familiar with that.
I am.
What happens is those primitive instincts kick in. So you start losing weight, your body starts releasing these hormones in your blood saying, eat, 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 eat. So you want to pick the hand with the ring or the hand without, but you have those influencing factors that you can't control. Those hormones such as that ghrelin I spoke of, those nerves in your body, the parasympathetic nervous system, it causes you to become so hungry. You're like, man, screw those apples. Give me those chips because those chips are going to make you feel more satisfied and you'll eat the chips or you'll eat the Popeyes chicken or whatever it is you're battling with. So that's why it's so difficult for people to lose weight and keep the weight off because your body actually works against you. But there are things that can be done, but I just want to put that out there to the universe that people that lose weight and gain it back is not all your fault. It's part of your body's auto-regulatory system.
So with that's important information, especially when people become, and I know from my own personal experience as well as others that I've talked to, whenever weight is a self-image is so powerful. If you gain some weight, after losing, or you're having trouble losing weight, it can really be depressive. And then you start eating more. So just like it's a never ending cycle. So I think that's really important, what you mentioned there, at least keeping people in the right mental space. But what do you do you said that there's things that you can do. You also mentioned there are medications that can help with weight loss. What would be I'm thinking to myself, what medication could you give somebody that will help assist them with weight loss that wouldn't necessarily impact their, health negatively? Because we all know medication does have negative side effects as well,
Right. Well, I'm glad you asked. Now, here's the deal. I'm not saying that you're just doomed. It's all over. You can't lose weight. It can't happen. But still, if you know what's working against you, then you have a better chance of winning. It's like, I didn't mention that I did 13 years in the military. Now I was only in the reserve. I did the reserve throughout college, medical school, and through my residency and my first couple of years of being a doctor. And I went through a lot of different trainings. I got deployed twice. Mm-hmm. But what I learned was when you're going to war, and I'm gonna be honest, when you're trying to lose weight, it's a war. You're going to war, baby, and you're going to war against being overweight. It's hard. The first thing you want to know before you set foot on the battlefield is who is your enemy and what are the capabilities of the enemy. Now that I've shared the enemy of weight loss in that your hormones are going to work against you, what you have to do is you have to equip yourself with the equipment so you can kick the tail of the enemy, right? Mm-hmm. So what is some of this equipment? Well, the first thing is equip your environment. Now, what do I mean by that? You and I are doing this podcast, right? And I'm talking kind of loud. Mm-hmm. It could be distracting. And I shared with you that my wife, she's getting her MBA and she's trying to study. Now, while she's trying to study, she could study, and I'm over there doing the podcast and she could start listening to me and be distracted, right? But what I did was I tried to help her equip her environment. So I came upstairs and closed the door, and I can scream all I want up here and she'll never hear me. So that's the environment. So when I mean the environment is, we talked about the cabinet. You go in the cabinet and you look to your right and you see those potato chips. You look to your left and you see those apples. Well, if you're going to war against obesity and you know that if you lose weight, those hormones are going to try to make you hungry again, go to the cabinet, get a big black garbage bag and throw those chips away. You see where I'm going?
Yeah.
You're making it so that the potato chips aren't even there. So when you go to the cabinet, all you have are the apples. Okay. Like if you come to my house, because believe it or not, I'm pretty healthy and everything, but it's a struggle for me. Like we have little kids to come visit us sometimes because I have a daughter, but she's in college now. My beautiful, wonderful, brand new wife and I, we don't have any children. Mm-hmm. So sometimes like her little nephews will come over and they always say, you don't have anything in your house, no ice cream, no candy, no cookies. So I did that by design because in my environment, I want to make it so that when I do get hungry and those hormones are like, get some ice cream, get some, I don't have it. I don't have it anywhere. So that's one thing you can do. Get all the things out of your home that can be tempting so that you won't fall to the temptation. Mm-hmm. The second thing you can do is exercise every day. Now, exercise, it won't just make you lose all the weight in the world, but it will help. And anything you can do to help is going to better your chances of being successful. Now, what I do when I exercise is I run 6 miles. Now, how many people can run 6 miles? Not everybody, but I've been running the whole time. And as I shared, I was in the military. I ran track. I'm just a runner. They used to call me Forrest Gump when I was in Nashville and medical school because I was from Mississippi and I'm a little bit country. And medical school, they're from everywhere, New York, LA, wherever. But they used to call me Forrest Gump. Now, one thing I do by design and I share with my patients, when you exercise, put yourself in a position where you have to do the full amount. Meaning when I run my 6 miles, I'll run 3 miles out. So I have to run 3 miles back. Like if you go to a track and you want to walk around the track 10 times, you can walk around 2 times and get in your car and go home. But if you walk a certain distance, then you don't have a choice. You got to go back or you won't get home. Or what I'll do is get my wife to drop me off 6 miles from the house and I have to run home. I know that sounds like a lunatic, but I always get my 6 miles in. Or if you exercise in your house, say you ride a stationary bike. My wife, she does the Peloton, so she has to do the class. But you want to put yourself in a position where you have to accomplish your goal, where you have objectives, and you want to keep up with it. A diary, write it down, share it with a friend so that you can get that social support so that they can sort of tell you you're doing a great job and all that encouragement. Because you mentioned something. Weight loss is also a state of mind. You have to stay encouraged. And that would include, like what I said, trying to have a buddy or somebody that's encouraging you and not discouraging you and building you up, but somebody that you report to so you have accountability. Mm-hmm. So these are just some things you can do to try to make your environment better so you can fight this war against obesity. But some people do benefit from the medication, and that is an option. But I say first try all these measures and then just see how far you can get. And then if you do take the medication, that has to be prescribed by a medical doctor. And wherever you live in the United States, you could just Google weight loss medicine by MD, and the nearest clinic will come up to your where your location is. You can do it, but you still want to try these environmental techniques that I spoke of that will be very beneficial.
Yeah, it sounds like like what you're saying is being prepared, is hugely important. Being prepared by putting the right foods in your house and not allowing yourself to keep, the foods that are going to negatively impact you. Being prepared that in your case, you're going to run out 3 miles, but you need to run 3 miles back to come back. You're preparing yourself for that. So it definitely, seems like that would would be a benefit for those who are trying to lose weight. It's a very tough thing. And like you said, when you mentioned, I don't know if you're aware who CT Fletcher is, but he's a famous powerlifter bodybuilder, and he always would say things like that, like you have a fat mind. So, and it made me think when you said that it's a mental state. It's like a lot of times people are gaining weight. By and large, we're not talking about people that have hormonal like compromises, but those who just mentally like can't get over those humps, and the suggestions that you mentioned could definitely help them do that. What do you think about taking a little pivot? What do you think about like the concept of BMI? Do you think the BMI is a good way to determine whether someone is obese? I'll tell you, and you probably know where I'm going with this, but obviously like this podcast is kind of oriented towards health, fitness. A lot of it is also like bodybuilding related. We've been having a lot of deaths in the bodybuilding community. And a lot of people are attributing, obviously there's, we're not going to go into the supplementation part of it, but the weight that people are carrying, even though there might be, physically look good or healthy, the weight itself is causing a problem. So do you think BMI is like a good way of determining, or is there a better way out there?
No, it's funny you say that, because I shared that I did 13 years in the military. And military, they use height and weight as a way to determine if you qualify as far as your body habitus to be in the military. I failed every single time. Even now, my BMI, I want to say is like 28, which would be considered overweight, because normal weight would be anywhere from say 20 to 24.9. But when you're 25 to 29.9, that's considered overweight. So I'm overweight, but I work out. Like soon as I get out this podcast, I'm going to go freaking ham it. I have a whole gym in my house. I don't know. You met me on Instagram, so you probably seen me working out, because I'm like the workout doctor, So where I'm going with this is I have a lot of muscle mass, chest, biceps, legs, because I work out. And this with running, I do resistance training with heavy weights. So BMI is probably not going to be your best indicator, especially for the people that work out. If they're a healthy weight, what we used to do in the military was they would put a tape measure around my waist and my neck, and then they would use that to determine if I was a good body size for the military. And I always passed that with no problem. And I'm sure the bodybuilders would do the same, because typically they have the smaller waist and the smaller neck. But, in the world of bodybuilding, you have to be careful. And what I want to bring up, I don't know a lot about that world, because I'm not that successful with my working out, but that's something that I aspire to do when I get older. And when I say older, I'm 49, I'll be 50 this summer, but I like to do it when I hit about 55. That's my goal. But I do know that there is a lot of misuse of different substances, different hormones, different types of medications. Like, say, for instance, a lot of the bodybuilders would take the fluid pills such as Lasix, which would cause you to have a more lean look when you get ready to compete, or hydrochlorothiazide, different types of medications that might be irresponsibly prescribed. And then on top of that, some bodybuilders can have hypertension. In that world, they're younger people, they're healthier, they might not go to the doctor and get checked out. And this could lead to heart disease and so on and so on. So, you can't really base a person's health status, like you said, off of what they look like, because I have patients that are very slim that might be type 1 diabetes, and their blood glucose is so high they can go to a diabetic ketoacidotic storm. So the bottom line, this is something to look for, but I think the best remedy for that is that everybody get a physical at least once a year. And then that way they can know their health status. And if they do take medications, steroids or fluid pills or whatever, make sure that they're prescribed by a licensed doctor that can properly monitor this medicine to make sure that it's safe.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because you hit the nail on the head as far as checkups, continuous checkups from a medical professional, because that's a hot topic right now in that world. Like I mentioned, several deaths recently, and there's this ongoing debate about whether the organization, whichever one you're competing in, should mandate that their athletes get physical screenings regularly before being allowed to compete. And there's pros and cons, like there's people on the pro side for it, against it. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I mean, your health is, it doesn't necessarily mean that something can, just because something doesn't happen acutely doesn't mean that over years of abuse to yourself, which whatever that means, whether it means you're like have extreme amount of weight, or you use anabolics, or you're or you're just eating a lot of food, that can eventually cause like problems down the road. I know you mentioned about the neck size, like so many bodybuilders have sleep apnea, and that's a huge contributing factor to all kinds of problems that can occur. And so yeah, no, I definitely agree with you that health screenings is a must. And I think sometimes what people do is they'll put bury their head in the sand, and it almost like, if I don't see it, it's not a problem, and then that's where you come to a head 5 years, 10 years down the road, and terrible things happen, unfortunately. So being in this pandemic, um, what do you think as far as like and I know we've been dealing with like the vaccinations. Now they've got some oral medications that seem to be promising. I think Pfizer came out with one. So like, what is your thoughts on that? Do you think vaccinations are a good thing? Do you think that we need some more research? Like what are your medical opinion on that?
Well, the bottom line is I work with the local media. I've actually been working with News Nation, which is a nationally syndicated news source, and I actually did a story with Newsy. I don't know if you're familiar with
I
Newsy.
I
They're
am.
based
Mhm.
in Nashville. I did a story with them last week.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, dealing
Awesome.
with when the people got pushed down in the concert.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
that Travis Scott concert.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I talked about how this could cause a person to lose their life, the crush injuries to
Mhm.
the torso and whatnot. But long story short, if you go to my Facebook page, Doctor, that's Dr. space Timothy Quinn, or my Instagram, Ask Dr. Quinn, AskDr Quinn, you'll see countless news stories about vaccinations. I actually just did a story just a little while ago. Reporter came to my house, and I think I sent you like a little funny thing because
You
I
did,
have
yeah,
a
like a TikTok thing. Yeah.
yeah, I have a TikTok too. The Queens 7288. That's my TikTok. But the bottom line is I do a lot of stories about coronavirus for the last couple of years. I on
For
my
sure.
YouTube page, Timothy Quinn, I have over it's 479 stories. And for the last 2 years, they've pretty much been all about vaccines and coronavirus.
Mhm.
But the take home is vaccines are safe, vaccines are effective, and vaccines, they're needed.
Mhm.
A lot of people are afraid of vaccinations, but the take home is if you get vaccinated, it will decrease your chances of contracting COVID-19. But you can have a breakthrough infection. That's possible, meaning you could get vaccinated and still get coronavirus. And you're like, well,
Mhm.
why should I get vaccinated if I can still get it? Well, here's the reason why. If you get vaccinated and you get coronavirus, your body will have had the opportunity, if there have been 2 weeks since you've gotten the vaccine, your body will have had the opportunity to build up antibodies. And you see these fists, right? Antibodies are proteins within your body that will recognize coronavirus if you do have a breakthrough infection and kick its tail. Meaning that if you get coronavirus, there's a much less probability that you'll get sick enough to go to the hospital, sick enough to lose your life.
Mhm.
So getting vaccines is key because it can help protect you. It's just like I talked about with the Army. When you get ready to go to war, you're going to get all your equipment. You might get shot, but if you're wearing a bulletproof jacket or bulletproof vest, it probably won't kill you. So can a bulletproof vest keep you from getting shot? No. But can it keep you from dying? Hell yeah. So you're going to wear that vest. And that's the way you have to look at vaccines, because they give you that protection that can save your life.
They often talk about COVID-19 causing problems for people that have like health issues, comorbidities, and stuff like that. Is there anything? And I know we're kind of running out of time, so we're gonna end here. But is there anything that you can suggest to the public that that could lessen their issues with the virus, or like maybe even the vaccine? Because there are some adverse effects that have been reported about the vaccine. By and large, not much. But is there anything that the public can do to like better their chances to encounter these things?
No, I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that. I've done a number of news interviews about this, because the local news with the station I work with, because I'm always available, they let me write or they let me suggest, but suggest topics every week on Thursday. That's my day. Every Thursday at 12 o'clock, if you're in the Jackson, Mississippi area, WJTV, and I get to suggest topics. And I've suggested the topic and it's been accepted at least 5 times since the pandemic started. How can you fight back, right? Do you have to just, oh my God, coronavirus coming, I'm going to die? You can fight back. So how can you fight back? And that's what you're asking, right? Exactly. Do you have to just be a sheep just waiting for the wolves to get you? You can fight back, because overwhelmingly, the people that have died from coronavirus, more so than anyone else, had compromised immune systems, meaning their immune systems, the proteins and cells within their body that are their defense cells. Everybody has an immune system, all right? And what your immune system does is, if you get an infection, it fights. It fights. That's why people that have HIV, and if they have a high viral load, their immune system is shot, meaning that it can't fight. And that's why people with HIV that don't take their medication and have a very low T cell count. I don't know if this is ringing a bell with everybody, but they can't fight off infections, and they have a higher chance of dying from pneumonia or other infections. That's why it's so important that they take their antiviral HIV medication so their immune system is up. But for people that don't have HIV, we can fight, and people with HIV can fight too, making your immune system as strong as possible. How can you do that, right? Number one, get enough sleep at night. Some people, I have patients, they think they can make it off 3 hours a night because they're working 18 jobs. And then I got one patient, he's Rico Suave. I say, man, you got too many women, man. You got to let some of the women go. But he's trying to juggle all his women and lying and going on. Get sleep. That's number one. Number two, eat healthy. Eating that apple instead of those chips, that's going to help your immune system if you have a good diet. So number one, sleep. Number two, good diet. Number three, exercise. Okay. If you exercise at least 30 to 60 minutes a day, at least 5 days a week, that's going to build up your immune system as well. You'll be less likely to die from coronavirus, but you'll also be less likely to even get sick from catching a cold, because any infection you get, your immune system, it can fight it off. Number 4, now this is a big one, okay? We live in America. Everybody is stressed out. Decrease your stress. For instance, me, all right? My wife and I bought some land around the corner. We have a nice house, but we want to get a nicer house. We bought some land and we're going to build a house on the land. The question is, when are we going to build, right? Now, we do well. We have a practice. We have 4 nurse practitioners, 25 staff members. We're making money, but we're not making that much money. I mean, we're doing okay, but we're not rich or anything. So last night I told my wife that we should just wait about 2 to 3, even maybe 4 years before we build this house. And she was like, why? I said, because we want to put ourselves in a financial situation where we won't be stressed. Because so many people in America, they do more than they can afford. We building this house. Fuck that. We're gonna be balling. They buy this big old car they can't afford. Like my man Rico Suave, they got too many women. They take on too much responsibility. What we need to do is live within our means. Don't take on a lot of extra responsibilities that we can't afford just to look good in front of everybody. And that'll reduce your stress. Also, your relationships. Now, I did mention I'm with my second wife, and we get along like peas in a pod. We're best friends. That helps so much when you're in a good, healthy relationship. I'm not saying leave your wife now or your husband or your boyfriend or whatever. But if you're in an unhealthy relationship, try to get some help. Talk to your preacher, your doctor, your counselor, and do everything you can to get into a healthy relationship. But if it's a toxic relationship, you might have to throw in the towel. Just make sure if y'all have children, he or she is still involved in those children's lives and never try to stop that, but get in a healthy relationship. And if you do these things, and also lastly, if you take medication, take your medication, follow up with your medical provider and follow their recommendations and be as healthy as you can. But if you do the sleep, healthy diet, exercise, decrease stress, and compliance with your medical regimen and be as healthy as you can, your immune system will be up. And if you contract coronavirus, you have a better chance of fighting it off. So you'll live longer and you'll be a happy camper.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's such an important set of criteria there. And they seem so simple, like, well, get some sleep, but people don't understand that the importance of these things. They're highly important. And like you said, for your immune system, especially dealing with living in this pandemic, it could mean life and death, So, well, Dr. Quinn, greatly appreciate you coming on. I know we ran a little bit over. I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds. You mentioned your YouTube page, Facebook, Instagram. I'll go ahead and tag everything at the bottom. Do you have anything else that you would want to direct people to?
Just want you to be healthy. Also, lastly, my webpage. If you just put in askdrquinn.com, that's ASKDR Quinn, QUINN.com. That's my webpage, and it has all my social media links. And I just want to end by saying that I did meet the real Dr. Quinn. I was in an airport, and I was flying to LA, and I did a rest over in Phoenix, and I went in the Delta VIP Club, and she was over there in the chair, and somebody said, "That's Dr. Quinn." I said, "I'm Dr. Quinn." They said, no, I'm talking about the for real Dr. Quinn. So I went over to her and I said, "Ma'am, listen, I'm not a weirdo. I'm not crazy." I said, "I just want you to see my medical ID to see that I really am Dr. Quinn." And I want to thank you, because at the time, this was when I first started. I just started my practice. And I said, I have a daughter. She's in private school. And I was worried she wasn't going to be able to stay in private school because I wasn't going to have any patients. But everybody, when they hear about Dr. Quinn is in town, they just come. So because of you, I'm successful. My daughter's going to stay in private school, and I'm gonna go back and sit down over here and not bother you. And she just laughed and said, "Hey, glad to be of assistance." And I said, "Thank you, ma'am." And so that's my story of fame.
That's an amazing story. That's so funny that just randomly like that you meet her there. That's incredible. And what a like you said, what a story to like tell people as good icebreaker with with different conversations and so forth. So, well, I appreciate you sharing that with us. And again, thank you again so much for your time. I wish you and your wife all the best with your practice and her schooling, and you have a great rest of the evening.
Hey, thank you. You have a great day, sir.
Take care.